Hey everybody, it's Matthew. Welcome to another episode of MMA and Coffee. On this episode, it's a recap of UFC 195. The first fight I'm going to talk about is Dustin Poirier against Joe Duffy. It was a toss-up. I thought either fighter had a chance to finish it, whether it was on the feet or on the ground. In this fight, Dustin realized that he had the advantage in the grappling, so he took advantage of the fight. Towards the end, Duffy went for a triangle, had it, but just wasn't enough time in the fight, so Poirier got the decision. Moving on to the next fight, Stipe Miocic against Andre Arlovski. This fight was a short one. It's actually kind of funny. In my prediction, I said that Stipe, if he was to win, was by decision, but he caught Andre early while he was fresh, and he finished it. He definitely made a case on being the #1 contender in the heavyweight division. Since the fight was so short, it's hard to be very critical of Andre on the mistakes he made, but at the same time, I think one was he let Stipe get too close to him, and he let his back get against the cage. If you look at Andre's previous fights, only open to get hit. He doesn't clinch, and his head movement isn't as great in those positions, and that's when he's open to getting finished. Moving on to the main event, Carlos Condit against Bobby Lawler. I felt like this fight lived up to all the hype. Everything we thought it would or could be, it was. And before I even get into the rounds or the judging or anything, I just want to say that this was a great fight. As a fan, it's up there. What a way to talk about what a way to start the year with that kind of fight as the main event. I saw people online joking about potentially the best fight has already happened, and it's like the first week of the month. All right, so round one, Carlos got a knockdown on Robbie, whether it was a slip or actually a real knockdown. In my opinion, should be counted as a knockdown. He fell and Condit landed more punches. So round one, easy, Carlos. Round two, Condit landed more than Robbie, but Robbie got a knockdown, so I give round two to Robbie. Then round three, no knockdowns, no one's hurt. I have to go with who landed more strikes, and that was Condit. He was more busy, so round three, I give to Condit. Round four, in my opinion, round four is actually the most one-sided round. If we were gonna look at all the rounds, this is the most one-sided round. Condit landed 48 strikes, and Robbie landed 6. I even think Condit rocked Robbie at one point. He had him on wobbly legs. He tried to finish it. Robbie, though, true champion, really tough, hard to finish. He did the right things to keep the fight going. Also, one thing I want to talk about very quickly on round four is the fact that Robbie has learned from the first Hendricks fight. The first Hendricks fight, he did not finish that fight strong in the 5th round. He let Hendricks win the 5th round. In the second fight, he finished the 5th round strong, and I think he left a very good impression on the judges on who won the fight. So in this fight, if you look at the fact that he only landed 6 strikes in the 4th round, it's very obvious that Robbie is pacing himself to end really well in the 5th round. Also, we have to look at the fact that going into the 5th after the 4th, the announcers even Robbie's corner is pretty much telling him he's down 3-1. He's got to finish Condit in order to win this fight. So, fifth round. Fifth round, Condit's kind of picking up where he left off. He's staying busy. He's throwing a lot of punches. I actually think in this round he throws the most out of all the previous rounds. He throws the most in this one. So he's staying very busy. And Robbie's still waiting. He's waiting. So about 1 minute and 40 seconds left. Robbie pretty much makes his last stand. He goes all out. He actually catches Condit with a left, then he catches him with another one. He's got Condit hurt, but we also got to take in consideration he's got to be tired too. So this is a combination of getting kicked and exhaustion. So Robbie's putting the pressure on Condit. He's defending, but he's still getting hit. He's kind of rolling off the punches. He's grabbing him, he's kneeing him, and then Robbie goes for a kick. Condit grabs the kick, and then the round pretty much ends on a very high note. Everyone's all on their feet. It was very exciting. As soon as the round ends, both fighters just lean against the cage. They're exhausted, they're tired. They both gave it their all at the end. And so, if we're looking at the fight though, round for round, round 1, Condit, round 2, Robbie, round 3, Condit, round 4, Condit, and then round 5, I give it to Robbie. He stole it at the very end. He finished strong. He did what he had to do. And so that's how I have it from a point system. If we're looking at point system, the fight went the distance, so you have to see who won more rounds. I think Condit won 3 out of the 5 rounds. At the same time though, we have to look at these judges and try to figure out where they're coming from and why they're judging the way they're judging. So round 3, 2 of the 3 judges gave that to Robbie. I don't think he won that round, but they gave it to him. And then you have to wonder too, I mean, of course, Robbie had more power. He didn't throw as much, but he did have more power behind his shots. At the same time though, Condit hurt Robbie too. They both dropped each other once. They both hurt each other. They both ended the fight tired. This was a great fight, but we have to start looking at the way they're judging and really break it down. And so, again, the fight went to the distance. It's a point system, so we have to go who won the most rounds. If this was Pride, where we judge the fight as a whole, maybe you give it to Robbie because he finished the fight strong. But we're not going by Pride rules. Then some people might even try to argue, okay, well, Robbie did more damage. Okay, well, he did more damage. If we're going to go by that, then we need to go by that on every fight. You can't just pick this fight and then another fight be different. A good example is, you look at some of GSP's title defenses. His title defense against Hendricks, he won more rounds. But the rounds Johnny won, he did all this damage. So who won the fight? They gave it to GSP that time, but this time they gave it to Robbie, who won less rounds but damage. So for me, it's like, okay, it's not so much that I'm upset with the decision, it's be consistent. If you're going to do it this time, you need to do it every time. Another example, Condit against GSP. Condit did way more damage than GSP, but GSP won more rounds and he controlled him. So, I don't know. It's very interesting. I don't want the decision though to leave a bad taste in my mouth because the fight was awesome. I love the fight. So for me on the judges, it's like, okay, be consistent, but also they got 3 judges. This is a championship fight. What are my suggestions on how they can make it better? Maybe they need 5. They need more people. So rather than 3, they need 5 people judging it. Also, I think the judges probably need to be in a separate room with no sound, no commentators and no crowd. Because this is something we need to take in consideration. Throughout the fight, the crowd was cheering Robbie. Now, to deny whether or not that can influence a judge, I don't see how you could deny that. If you're watching the fight and everyone's screaming one guy's name, it's going to influence how you're judging the fight. Another thing they can do, when they're calling the fight, we're seeing stats. The judges need to be able to see the stats. Because like I said, if you're watching it and you're listening, you're not really watching the fight, you're listening. And so you might not even know that, hey, this guy landed twice as many punches than the other person. So I think 5 judges instead of 3. I think they need to be in a separate room, and I think they need to be able to see the stats. That way, the judging can be way more consistent, rather than you have situations where someone landed more strikes than the person threw and lost. For me, that has to be a record. Is there another fight where this happened, where someone landed more strikes than the person threw and lost the fight? Unless he finished it, you know what I mean? So for me, I just want consistency, and I want the judging to get a little bit better. At the same time though, in a fight like this, I don't think anyone lost. Neither one gave up. They both put it all out there in the 5th round. Thought the fight was awesome. Only critique is the judging needs to be more consistent. The fact that it was a split decision and they weren't agreeing on certain rounds that I thought were obvious. Only complain about it. Moving along, what do they do after this fight? Do they give Konnit a rematch? Konnit was talking about in the press conference potentially retiring, that this was it for him. So does the UFC make him an offer he can't refuse on a rematch so he doesn't retire and we get to see this a second time? Or does he retire and then Woodley gets a chance to go against Robbie? Personally, for me, do I think Konnit still has the skill to compete at the highest level? Of course. He just had a title fight and, in my opinion, won more rounds. So, of course, he can compete with the welterweight division. At the same time, if his heart's not in it, if he's already got one foot out, I don't think that's healthy. I think for him to be able to compete at the highest level, he needs to be fully committed into it. So if that was his last fight, what a way to end a great career. He's definitely one of my favorites to watch, always exciting, and I wish him the best. So really the final thing I can only talk about is rematches, what I think about them, and when should they do and when should they not. So really the only time rematches should happen is when it's a controversy decision, when it's a close fight, or really when it's just a short, quick fight. For example, the Aldo and Conor fight, very quick. We didn't get to see much of anything. As soon as it started, it was over. So in that fight, you could make a bigger argument that, well, we didn't even get to see this person. We didn't even get to see him throw kicks, which I thought was going to be a big advantage for him. We just didn't get to see anything of the fight. We want to see more of it. Whereas these other fights where Doom destroys Cain Velasquez, he's getting a rematch. Where Holly Holm destroys Ronda, and they're talking about a rematch. Some of that we don't know yet still, but the fact that they're even entertaining that is absurd. Very one-sided. Let them climb back up. I'm kind of over the rematches unless it's a close fight like this one with Konnit and Robbie. Anyways, that's what I thought about the card. What'd you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Like, dislike, subscribe. See you next time.